And welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
We're looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man. And closing out the week with us is Niall McGowan, back from the Bat Minute.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Just call us Bat Minute. Yeah.
On today's show, minute 115 is what we're looking at. The minute starts with Agent Coulson talking to Tony about his port papers, and it ends with Pepper telling Tony to get the show on the road. This is our, we're kind of in that pause, that beat after the big climax. Everybody's taking a breath. We're kind of building to the end of the film, and it's just a nice moment, kind of wrapping things up here with Agent Coulson as we get to do here. But before we do that, we talked a little bit yesterday about the text scrolling on the TV. I wanted to finish reading that information for you. So last we left off, we had Stark Industries shares soar on rumors of new technological breakthrough. Breaking news, mystery surrounds bizarre hydrogen bus explosion on Howard Stark Memorial Parkway in Long Beach. Traffic diverted to alternate routes while structural damage to freeways assessed and power is restored. Damage control officials to issue report in coming days. There is speculation that this explosion... And that's all we get to find out on the news report. But a couple interesting things. So there's apparently rumors of a new technological breakthrough with Stark Industries. I don't know if they're thinking it's the suit or if it's the maybe it's just the light in the sky. I don't know what this is, but apparently it's helping Stark Industries out. And then I think it's really funny that they throw in this strange hydrogen bus explosion as if that's the cause of the problems on the freeway, not the two big metal men having a fight.
That's too funny. So, the plane at the end of Captain America First Avenger, you know, that great big, what was that, like a Vulcan something or other? Is that the same plane that's flying over this giant, like, mural on the wall, the defense plant and the arsenal of democracy? I assume that's Stark, like, opening the plant.
Yeah, I was going to ask what that picture is, because I wasn't too sure if, like, is this a genuine picture of a historical event, or is it a mock-up, like of a thing that Howard Stark has done? I
wonder. I actually don't think it's the same plane. The Valkyrie in that Hydra bomber doesn't have props on it. So. And
we've seen a number of black and white photos around Tony's office and around the kind of the Stark Industries property throughout, and it's tricky. A lot of times it does feel like they're using just real photos, real black and white photos that they found on probably Shutterstock and purchased and printed large, so they could just have some interesting militaristic looking kind of old school photos up on the wall. So to that end, I feel like a lot of it probably is real historical photos that they have decided to use in context of it. But then there are times where I wonder if they've doctored them in some way to kind of fit a little more with kind of the history of Stark Industries and whatnot. And so I don't know. It's not a photo that I've found online anywhere to be able to say, was this a real defense plant? I don't know. But it is interesting, and I like that they do it. And I don't know if it matters so much, but it would be really cool to find out that they did manipulate it in some way, and then the later films used that to kind of play around with in the context of their stories.
Well, and I love the message, defense plant and arsenal of democracy, as they're talking about how to hide Tony's efforts as an arsenal of democracy. You know, I think there's something nice about that.
Like, how ironic. Because it's Obadiah's day coming back from the dead.
Somebody give me some marbles to chew on.
That's a weird thing. Like, have you guys noticed, maybe you've talked about it in the show before, but like, something's going on with Jeff Bridges' mouth these days. Like, he seems to be in a permanent state of kind of talking like he's eating toffee or something these days. He's got a real no, I just want to talk like this now. And it's kind of, he's not doing it in this movie, but nowadays it's like, oh yeah, this is like his lips are just trying to like clench onto his teeth or something. There's just some weird going on there.
But it does feel very much of that character that he's taken on for the last decade. Really, kind of that cowboy, the Rooster Cogburn character that he's been. It seems like he's living as much as performing in his films these days. So it's kind of funny that it's become so prevalent.
He only takes roles where he can do this with his mouth, and that's kind of where he is now.
Right. Let's see. We've got Pepper. Just some great stuff going on here. I think just the real kind of the way that she's working him. I swear, I always wonder, what does Pepper not do for Tony? She seems to handle everything at his house. Somebody's like refilling drinks, and I mean she's bringing coffee, but somebody's setting out the booze and cleaning things up. Is Pepper doing all that? And then also helping run the company. And here she is, like putting on his makeup for him. I just question the lengths that Pepper goes to kind of keep her boss happy.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed. Because there's only so many hours in the day. She's very, very busy. I feel like we need a Pepper Pot spinoff. Like maybe the new Disney Marvel Hulu relationship is going to give us a new spinoff. It's just Pepper Potts.
Well, I hope we find out that she's one of us, like triplets, and all of them work for Tony.
Like duplicity.
And maybe he doesn't even realize it, but they just kind of this is how they actually get everything done.
The thing is, like it's because Pepper is essentially just like his Alfred. Like you have the vibe that you're trying to make it. No, Jarvis is his Alfred because it's like he sounds like an English butler. But it's like no, that's the ploy. As Pepper is the Alfred the whole damn time.
Yeah, she's been doing the work. Can I just make a nod to the line, "This isn't my first rodeo, Mr. Stark"? That when we started this show, I did not know, in fact, what Coulson's first rodeo was. And now we do. Yeah. I think the first rodeo was Captain Marvel, and I find that enormously satisfying too.
It is going to be so weird if you try to do a rewatch of these movies in like not release order, but like timeline
chronological order. Yeah.
So it will just be this thing of like, oh yeah, I watched like Captain Marvel like second, basically. And then she doesn't show up again for like 17 movies or something. And you're like, oh yeah, that's right. There was a character who was like way back at the start of this thing.
Which is perfect, right? That's exactly how they want it to happen. Where of course she's not in any of these movies because she's on the other side of the galaxy.
Yeah.
I love it.
Although it's really weird though, because somebody we had one of our supporters had put a link to a kind of this thing from, I don't know who published it. I think CNET actually did. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, every movie and show in perfect order. And interestingly, they left Captain Marvel after Ant-Man and the Wasp in order. And I don't know if the reason for that is because solely of the mid-credit sequence, which kind of ties it very much directly to everything going on with Infinity War. But that's where they left it. But weirdly, then also they put Infinity War after it.
See, I wouldn't like mind that as you could take the mid-credits bit as a nice little tease where if you hadn't seen them before, you'd be like, what's all this about? And you don't find out until years later. Because I actually did do that because I'm going through my big rewatch at the minute, and I did do a little bit out of order where I watched Ant-Man before Age of Ultron. Because it's just the fact that I had the choice between the two of them. It's like, well, Ant-Man's shorter and I don't have much time tonight, so I've gone for this instead. And I kind of forgot that there's loads of allusions to Age of Ultron. They talk about like, oh yeah, the Avengers out there dropping cities out of the sky and all this kind of thing. And I was watching, it's like I like it this way though, because if they had released it first, the audience would be like, wait, what happened? What have the Avengers done? And then you'd be like, there's an Avengers movie coming out. You're like, oh crap, I gotta see this one to find out what happened.
It's a really interesting order, and it will be fun to kind of play around with that and just kind of watch things. I mean, obviously, we're all watching them as they're released because we're watching them as soon as they released. But it would be interesting to, like down the road, like 10 years from now or whatever, when people start coming up with their own, like, there's the machete order for Star Wars and these different orders for how you should watch these movies to really make it all make sense.
Yeah.
I'm actually already working on our infographic for the Marvel Movie Minute listening order. So don't worry about it. I got that covered.
Yeah,
we'll have a whole,
I've seen people listed
order
down, though, like, the preferred order, and they always cluster the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, yeah, you watch the first one, then you watch the second one. But I always think, like, no, you need to break it up. Like, I put it in, like, you get to Avengers, because that's the culmination of Phase 1, then Guardians of the Galaxy, and then you take a break from those guys for a little while, and then after Age of Ultron, then you're back. We're like, oh, yeah, so now you've seen the culmination of another Avengers movie, back to the Guardians and what they're up to and stuff. And I don't understand why you'd want them to have this random bit in the middle of your story where, like, yeah, we went with these guys for like 4 hours and then we won't see them again for like 8 more movies. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think Iron Man and Iron Man 2 are the only ones that are pretty close to each other. Everything else is spaced out kind of across phases.
It's still not odd phase of like, oh, the Incredible Hulk. Yeah, you don't have to as well. Like, you could watch it if you want to, but you don't have to.
Oh, Niall, we have to.
We'll be doing that.
We have to.
You have my sympathies, guys.
Oh, I like that one. I don't think I think it's a little unjustly disdained because it's so different, but I'm looking forward to talking about it. I think it'll be interesting.
I liked it at the time in the cinema. I was like, yeah, that was okay. And then I caught it again, though it was cut down for TV, so maybe that was what was doing the damage. But the second viewing was like after so many great Marvel movies that come out, I was watching it like, oh, this is terrible. Like, it was, but it might have been just in comparison to the good stuff that had come since. So it's I remember there was a bit though, and again, you guys will talk about it, but like I was sitting watching it, and out of nowhere, Michael K. Williams disappears on screen for like a split second, and I was like, "What the hell is he doing here?" And then he didn't show up the rest of the movie, and I was like, "Did he have a major part?" Because he can't just throw in friggin' Omar from The Wire and have him for a split second, like a Stan Lee cameo or something. And not have people going like, wait, what? Why was he there?
Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about with him and everyone else next year when we get to The Incredible Hulk. That will be interesting. So we get a little nod to the bodyguard story here in this minute as Tony's like, what's this whole thing with this bodyguard cover-up? It seems a little flimsy. And I like that he points that out. And I also like that they have it because that is, for the longest time, in the comics, that was the excuse that they had, is that they said Iron Man is Tony Stark's bodyguard, and that's kind of how they went in the comics. So it's a nice nod to have that here as the cover story.
Yeah, it's a good to have your bases covered. Where like, because you might get some of the hardcore older fans been like, oh, you bring us up, and like, yeah, there you go. It's been
it's in there.
It's kind of like I always felt that again, you guys will talk about it in several years' time, but I always felt that they were really covering their bases at the end of Iron Man 3 when they actually have Killian say like, I am the Mandarin, just so they can't be like, oh, they didn't even do the Mandarin. It's like he is the character, like that guy right there. He is declaring, I am the Mandarin. That's our version of the character. It wasn't Ben Kingsley, it was this guy. But people still didn't get that. People still complained about it. But I took it to be like, no, that's them going, no, the Mandarin is in it. He is a character in it. It's Guy Pearce. It's not the other guy.
And then we get the final reveal in this minute. As Pepper goes to thank Agent Coulson for all of his help and tries to repeat the acronym that he has, and he interrupts her and says, "Just call us S.H.I.E.L.D."
There it is.
The thing is, though, it's one of these. It's great in the movie, and in 2008 in the cinema, this was just like, oh my god! But like in years since, with all the stuff that they laid out with the MCU, it's kind of like it took them this long to come up with the name S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, you see friggin' Peggy Carter in S.H.I.E.L.D. way back when. They never thought to shorten it. And then you're kind of like, wait a minute. They never thought to just take the initials of the friggin' the big phrase they kept saying and just make cool as all hell Nick Fury. Never went, why don't we just call it, oh, look, that makes S.H.I.E.L.D. Like...
Right.
If
what
you
are the
take
odds?
Just the first you guys, How have we not seen it? I get the feeling from this sequence with Coulson's delivery here that sometime in between the last scene where they had to address the name S.H.I.E.L.D. and this time, there was a meeting, like a complete bureaucratic meeting, and they said, okay, we're fine. It is now officially sanctioned by marketing that you can say S.H.I.E.L.D. And so he is just telling everybody, don't worry about it. My email address is now shield.gov, and it's okay. I just feel like this is a project. It's a marketing project that's underway, and I would see that movie too.
I'm totally forgetting now. Did they reference S.H.I.E.L.D. at all in Captain Marvel as S.H.I.E.L.D.? Did
Yes.
they ever say
Yeah,
S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I don't know.
They had the shield cap that they're talking about going undercover, and she's like, "Do you think it's intelligent to wear a cap with your S.H.I.E.L.D. logo on it and stuff?" So yeah, they did.
But is it just the logo, or does it say S period H period I period E period L period D period? Or
I think it might just be the emblem. So maybe they got around it that way. But
I'd be interested too, because at the very end, when Fury's working on the computer and he's typing out the Protectors Initiative, the Avengers Initiative, that thing, I think it says something about S.H.I.E.L.D. on the screen, maybe.
So maybe this is just proof that Agent Coulson is just really slow, and he never got that all of those words put together created this acronym S.H.I.E.L.D.
Or maybe he's just very precise. He's precise, not slow.
Right.
He's precise.
He's precise. He's like, if this is what it's called, let's call
That's
it.
right. No, you made it. You made up those words. We
These
have
are the
to
words.
stick to
We're
it.
saying
Yeah,
the words.
we're gonna own it.
it could be that like the previous Coulson you saw was like a dodgy clone who wasn't quite all there, so he'd never pieced together. Oh yeah, it's spelled S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
And now he died. They brought in a new Coulson, and he's like, yes, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's why he's so abruptly was like, just call it S.H.I.E.L.D. And just
He's the life model decoy.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Or maybe there was more scroll work going on that we were realizing.
I would have liked to see, though, if they had a scene in Captain Marvel where like Nick Fury's he calls it the big long phrase. And she's just like, why don't you just call yourself S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like. And then, as if the internet wasn't angry enough about the movie, that would have given even more fuel to the fire.
Exactly. Well, Niall, do you remember when you first saw Iron Man? Did your theater have a big reaction when he said, call a S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I do remember going to see Iron Man. It was a real. It's kind of bizarre because it was an opening day thing where it's like, oh, I had to see this thing. Whereas, I'm sure like a lot of people, like the character, I knew him. But like I mostly knew the Marvel verse from the cartoons, like the animated Spider-Man and the animated Iron Man, even though it wasn't on as much. And because like my hometown, Ireland, getting access to like Marvel comics wasn't, it wasn't easy. Basically, there wasn't a thing that shipped in quite regularly. Get them anywhere now, but. So at the time, like I knew, like, oh yeah, Iron Man, I remember that cartoon. But there was enough buzz about it to be like, oh yeah, you should go to this. And then I just knew of like the mythos and stuff. So then you guys are saying it was telegraphed, but I was sitting there. I just took the joke. It's just like, oh, he's got the agency has a really long-winded name. And then at the end when he said, oh, just call it S.H.I.E.L.D., I was like, oh my God, I didn't piece that together. That's amazing. And I was probably like, it's Nick Fury. So I remember Nick Fury, and I got really into it and stuff. And so I was very excited about it. And I do remember there were people there who were like, there was a palpable kind of like, oh, there we go. And then because it was, of course, the first of the MCU, I remember didn't know who the people were, but there was a ragtag band of us who knew, oh, you're supposed to stay until the end of the end credits. And we were just like, I remember they brought up the house lights and everything. And there was a guy standing with a brush looking at us like, what are you guys still doing here? And we're just like, there's supposed to be a thing. Like, what? I don't know why you brought up the lights and stuff. And then there was that worry of like, maybe there's not a thing. Maybe we're all just sitting here like idiots for no goddamn reason. And then they did the Avengers Initiative thing. Like, oh, thank God. Hey, there we go. And it's just bizarre that even like friggin' last month going to see Captain Marvel, as soon as the credits start, there's still people who get up and walk out as if they don't know. It's right. Crazy to me that like 20 odd movies in, people who were there opening night didn't think like I should stick around to see if there's anything after these, directed by credits and stuff. It's like, but I remember that being my main memory of the movie was just like the agonizing awkwardness of sitting knowing that there was supposed to be something after the credits, but everyone else except me and like 3 random guys just like sitting there going like, you heard it too. This guy's staying, so he must know something. So I think I'm okay. And then as like, you know, they're getting into the props department stuff, and you're kind of getting really like, oh god, the lights are up. This guy's just staring at me. I don't know. I'm thinking he's staring at me because he thinks I know, but I'm hoping that he knows. And the unbearable awkwardness of it all until you know where it's like, of course, everyone knows to stay except those random people who still friggin' leave.
That's so funny. I've always been a credits watcher. I'm like that one. I'm that guy who the employees are all waiting for. They're all staring like, why is this guy sitting here? And I just love sitting and watching credits and listening to music and reading names and processing. But it's funny because this definitely kind of created a shift. And nowadays you have a lot of people, because I'll still say regardless, but you'll have these random people who, if there's not something, or if there's like a mid-credit sequence but not an end credit sequence, then they all complain. They get up and was like, look, I can't believe there wasn't anything there.
I do remember my hometown theater. I didn't see it myself, but my brother told me about it, that outside Batman versus Superman, they actually had a notice saying there are no post-credit scenes. Just up in the door, as if like, get the hell out once the credits starts. It's like, we're sick of waiting for you damn people to move.
That's so funny.
Although it was awkward too. Like just there on Friday, I went out to see Shazam, and I forgot to check, so I had to like during the end credits, had to turn on my phone and like quickly Google like, are there post-credit scenes in Shazam? Like, yes, okay, right. Stick around then.
Yep, it's funny. Even the DCU is getting into that.
Yeah.
Which is funny because they initially said that they weren't going to do that around, I think, Justice League or something. And then, but I was surprised actually because of that when sitting to the end of Shazam, that I was like, oh, they did throw something in.
I'm curious to see, and again, this will air long after the movie's out, but I'd be curious to see if they do a post-credit scenes for Endgame, because I think it would be a real mark of like, that was the end of one big era, to not have, and then like a post-credit bit to just be like, that was the end of the movie.
And Feige certainly said that. I mean, what was the thing he said, Pete? He called it like the end game, or what did he call it? Like this whole 22.
It's called like the Infinity Saga.
He said it's a culmination of the last 22 movies, and I mean he's. The way he's presenting it, this is it. This is the end, and whatever comes next is different.
Yeah.
So, it would make sense then for them to not have it. But yes, by the time people are listening to this, they're rolling their eyes at us because they all know already.
It's like, exactly you idiots don't know, like friggin' Galactus shows up in the last goddamn second.
Oh, no. Oh, man.
Well, so Niall, we always like to ask our guests before we wrap up what their thoughts are on their rankings as far as all the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know all 21 of them at this point might be a little unwieldy, but do you have like a top 5?
I was going to say, like, geez, guys, you should have told me in advance. I would have to get out the friggin' graphs and everything to work that one out. Actually, at the minute, I would say, just purely in terms of enjoyment, I would put Ragnarok on my number 1. It's just something I remember when I first saw it, I was like, yeah, I liked it, but it's a bit too jokey. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, I love this. This is just amazing. And it's a pure visceral thing of like, hey, here's Thor flying around on a hammer while Immigrant Song's playing. And it's just really crazy. And they're just going for it. And it's very, very funny. And it's just a real, because the title Ragnarok indicates it's going to be a bummer. And then it turns out to be like one of the most joyous films you could watch in the entire MCU saga, basically. So that's definitely my number 1 at the minute. I'd say 2 probably would be the Avengers, just the first Avengers. Just because I still think it stands up as a really well put together movie in terms of like, they, there was joy seeing at the time, just like, oh, they actually got all these characters together. And it's just like, seeing friggin' Cap and Tony bouncing off each other, and the way the story weaved out, and just like finally seeing all these characters together. It was a novelty at the time, but it still stands up as a functioning film that's still very compelling and stuff. Third, I'd probably say Civil War, because it's a good culmination of like this long running character arcs that are coming to great end. Like it's because as much as I wasn't too fussed by Age of Ultron, everything that happens in Age of Ultron needs to happen to get to the kind of the payoffs in Civil War about why Tony's doing what he's doing and why Cap's doing what he's doing, et cetera, et cetera. So I put that probably third. Fourth, I'll probably put Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Just loved that movie. Just tons of fun. Just can't really fault it as a film. It's just a really good laugh all around. And every time I watch it, I'm always like, yes, this is just, I've yet to find any bit of it where I'm nitpicking it or have any beef. It's just like, this was just perfect. I just loved it, every second of this. And then, I guess 5 would probably be, I'll give it to Winter Soldier. Just for being, I just love the Hydra twist. I love the fact that they establish this whole thing and then it completely falls apart. And then it's the fact that everyone you knew and trusted, it turns out they might not be trustworthy. And it just really gets into some dark territory. All the stuff with Cap and Bucky is fantastic as well. And I just love the fact that like the transition from cheesy old school, aw shucks Captain America into like it's like him going through his own like Vietnam Watergate put together. And it's like all the stuff he missed in America while he was frozen kind of happens in his own personal way to him through the events of that movie, and he comes out a completely different character at the end. So I think that was exceptionally well done. But so yeah, I guess like off the top of my head, those would be my top 5.
Well, it's a solid top 5. Those are some good choices up there. So I don't think anyone could find fault with that.
I think that celebration of how they really have done an able job of, even while making the movies sort of have a similar kind of tonal quality, they're different movies. That Winter Soldier is at the very top of my list just because it's a great sort of spy thriller, and I just have so much fun with that. I love how they're kind of playing with these tropes, and they're doing it in a way that they've created kind of a safe space now after 22 movies to do it. But and I understand critics who are ready to see something new, but man, it's just been such a fantastic ride all along the way for me.
I think I had to pitch someone the Winter Soldier just the other week. I know a guy who's sort of in and out of the movies. He's just not that fussed by them. But he was asking about the appeal of these things, and I'm like, oh, I mean, like Winter Soldier, that's like their version of like All the President's Men, or like the Parallax View or something. It's the fact that they actually get in friggin' Robert Redford to be in the movie, to take a direct like this. We got the same friggin' guy in it and everything.
Right.
And just the fact that from this week, obviously it's ages ago now, the people listening, but they had that Joker trailer came out, and the whole thing, the buzz about it is like, oh, it looks like they've essentially made Taxi Driver, but it's about the Joker. And they've even got, like, it visually looks like Taxi Driver and everything. That's kind of like, who would have thought to make a comic book movie based on something from, like, the 70s?
Right.
And I was like, well, Winter Soldier already did it. So.
Way ahead of them. Yeah, it's nice to see that they're giving some nice vibes to them that feel different. Ant-Man had a great kind of heist movie feel, and they're allowing these other genres to kind of bleed in. And I think because of that, they're creating some really interesting films that don't just feel like standard cookie cutter superhero movies. Well, Niall, thanks again for being with us all week and chatting about these wonderful minutes of Iron Man. We're glad to have had you.
Oh, happy to be here, guys. Happy to pop back anytime. I know because we're near done with Batman Returns, but you guys are welcome to pop over for Batman Forever. I don't know if that's how strong you feel in that movie, but you're more than welcome to come in and talk about a few minutes of that once we start that later in the year, if you should so wish.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to talk about that one. That's actually, I think, a pretty interesting one. So I think it's probably my second favorite of those 4 films.
Oh, I've been surprised.
That'd be good to talk about. Yeah.
I've been surprised so far. There's been a lot of positive feedback about Batman Forever in the lead up to it. So.
Well, it's not Schumacher's the debacle that became the 4th one. So, well, would you like to tell everybody where they can learn more about Bat Minute and you online?
Oh yeah, well, you just get me through all the Bat Minute stuff, and And yeah, just we're available under Batminute on pretty much all the things. Like we're in there under Facebook. We've got the Batminute Listeners Cave, which is like a proper discussion group that you do have to join. I think there's like security questions as far as I'm aware, but I'm not too sure. I'm pretty sure they're quite easy to get past. And on Twitter, just Batminute. Instagram, I think there's a Grinder. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. Like as far as I'm aware, we're on everything. So, if you want to listen to the show, of course, we're on all your major podcatchers and iTunes and whatnot.
All the links in the show notes.
Awesome. Well, everybody, that is it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at MarvelMovieMinute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers,